And what I wanted to do here was just a little bit of an alternative way to face framing and long layering. I'm going to work with a razor. Today I'll use my guarded razor, and this is the kind of shorty version that feels so comfortable. It's the feather detail razor. And you'll notice I'm just here over the ear, and I've got about a 1-inch wide horizontal section. I'm going to get it with lots of tension, even kind of pinching it and holding it down here. And the thing here is you have to just visualize where you're going to go. Since I'm working horizontally, this will be one of the longer parts of this face frame. Notice the hair is just brought straight down. I'm going to start right below the jawline with an edge stroke that's fairly open. And I'm going to work out to this existing length right here. So very soft, very loose. You know, alternatively, I could hold it technically through my fingers and let my fingers slide through. I'll probably end up doing a little bit of both here to get exactly where I want it to be. So you can see the angle coming in. Now, as I drop down this next section, there's no over direction here. Normally when we think about a face frame, we take, sections kind of parallel to the frame. But I saw my good friend Shay Dempsey do this in a lesson a few years back, and I just thought I could see there's so many great benefits to working it horizontally like this, especially for finer hair or for any time you want more of a chunky feeling and you don't want to over direct and get that hair kind of all aired out. So I know where I started. Now you can see the thing with the razor cut and soft lines like this is they're harder to follow. You really have to have your classic hair cutting down. So the first one was here from the jaw. Now I'm going to come from the lip and I'm going to work my way into it. If I feel like I'm losing tension, I'm going to comb. Maybe I'll comb a little bit more, hold it through the fingers, losing a little too much tension there, and then work through. No over direction, very little elevation.
But lots of tension.
Lots of tension in creating that face frame there. I'll check it again. And, kind of skimming the edge with the edge of the blade. I have a kind of a philosophy with razor cutting about rotation. Has a lot to do, to me, the way that the blade engages with the hair. And in this case, if this is the hair, I'm using the edge of the blade, so that I get kind of what I like to think of as a chunkier look. Okay, so now for this one, I'm going to go up a little bit higher. I can see my line here. My guideline is right there. Obviously, there's none at the top, so I have to kind of visually connect it. So I come right up here, right about to the top of the lip, and I'm working my way in. Again, the hardest part here is keeping that tension. Especially the hair is a little bit wet, which is for me great for razor cutting. I prefer to razor cut damp hair, and in this case hair that's got some of the day-day hair mist, because it ensures for me that the blade is going to glide, it doesn't pull, it doesn't snag, and I feel that gives a real damage-free cut while creating the texture that we want. And again, just a simple but beautiful effect. On this side it just took 3 sections. Now I'm going to come over to the other side. It might take about 4 sections on the other side. But I just have to remember where the first one was. Below the jaw, kind of below the lip, above the lip. So looking at the hair a little bit differently, sectioning it a little bit differently, and having some fun with this here. I think I can go back just a tiny bit more on this side with my section. And then I have to prep this hair. Use a little bit of the day-day, day-day, do-do-da-da. Davines products, something that has been in my world now for well over 20 years. When I was a salon owner, I was one of the first to be an exclusive Davines salon owner way back in the early 2000s in New York. And it's just a brand that's always kind of something I've always believed in. Number one, because of the quality. Number 2, the beautiful aesthetic. And then when you really get to learn about the brand and their ethos of sustainability, I think it's a very, very awesome way to be. All right, so coming in on this side, I'll be working with the heel. I'll turn the hair a little bit towards me, so it'll be much easier for me to control. That's one of the good things about razor cutting. Since it's not precision cutting, you can manipulate the hair a little bit more as you cut it. Not traditional precision cutting. Now, again, I don't think that means that you need to be imprecise or messy or not in control of what you're doing. It's just not that traditional kind of geometry that I still love, and I do very often. in this little series here of cutting these colored mannequins for Alice and Daza about 2 weeks ago. Now moving up a little higher, so you have to see through. It's right about there. So, and that was right below the jawline. So now coming in right about at the lip line. No over direction, very little elevation, a little bit of rotation just so that the blade can access it and my hand isn't kind of bouncing off her chin.
Since this is the heavier side, what are some things that you're thinking about?
As I get to the top, it's going to be really important because up to about here, it's symmetrical. It's this piece I have to think about. And it's, you know, when anything that you're doing with layered hair or anything you're doing with heavy side parted hair, I just always think of can you cut it more where it's going to be worn. So this hair is, you know, it's not going to be worn in front of her eye. As fun as we might think that is, it's not super kind of comfortable. So I bring it over towards where it's going to be worn. And that's basically how I balance it. So by using, now there was no over direction up to this point. Now there's definitely some over direction because this hair is being directed over to where it's going to be worn. And it'll be even more on the neck section, kind of bring it over behind the corner of the eye where she would tend to push it to get the balance. You know, at this point, before I drop down this last bit, I can see where we're at. Good. Good, just kind of feeling right where it's at. I think I could actually, this very first piece, I could take a little bit shorter based on what I just felt. Just a little bit more right in here. A lot of feeling goes into it, quite literally. Got to feel the hair. Bring this over towards where it's going to be worn. So this is where the over direction is. And again, feeling that shortest piece there, it's right by the top of the lip. And I want this to balance right about from the same place. So just getting that top first. There's just too much hair to hold all in one. And I'm coming through. So by not over directing and by elevating very, very lightly, I'm able to keep some density in this face frame. And you know, all too often I think a face frame can get just too thin, too weak, not enough definition. I'd rather, in this case, for there to be a little bit more definition, and then I can come back and use some slicing internally to kind of free up the movement. A little bit of a chunkier feel. So now if I feel like I want some more movement, I can over direct this forward, and I'll kind of just take it all as one. And I'll use a little bit of slicing. I'm just going to focus on the last 2 or 3 inches of the hair, and that's not making the hair any shorter. It's just creating a little bit of separation, and in this case, giving a little bit more of that chunky effect. I'll stay away from the very top of the ear, as I don't, again, want to lose length or make it too sparse above the ear. Coming in, just using the tip of the blade every ½ inch or so on the last 2 to 3 inches of the hair here. You could go considerably deeper, but it's not really what I want. Okay, I'm going to switch to my scissors, mostly because I'm excited. We have a now 6.5 inch HB Pro 1, which is our all-time best-selling, most popular scissor, on sale right now for the Labor Day weekend, 20% off. It comes in only like 2 sets, $170 for an awesome scissor. And we've had 5.5 and 6 for a long time, and we finally got a 6.5 inch. These are made in Japan, and we just literally got our delivery from Japan, so I'm very excited. And I think, you know, what these are great for is point cutting, deep point. I mean, you know, obviously if you just like a longer scissor for everything, that's great. But one of the things I like a longer scissor for personally is when I want to point cut like the way I'm about to do. Because the blade is long, I want it on an angle because I want to take length off here. It's just so much more comfortable because it's long. I just have to turn it a little bit to get the effect that I want. So I'm taking off the length here. I'm going to kind of square layer now behind this face frame. Then I'm going to go in a little deeper. And again, this is what's also really nice about these. And just be very deliberate with a few kind of deep point cuts.
Hannah Ruth Adams is popping up here. Hello, Hannah. She's saying thank
Excited
you.
to see you in New York soon for the Video Awards and to see the team from Van Michael nominated for I think a couple categories, to be honest.
In any case, though, she's saying yes, thanks for the razor demo. She's feeling comfortable using it more and more. Awesome, Hannah.
Yeah, that's a real, Hannah, what I just did around the face, a real simple and fun and productive way to start using the razor more. Obviously, there's lots of ways to face frame with the razor. Using it in that just simple horizontal approach, especially on your finer clients, you know, where you're like, oh, I don't want to take too much out of the face frame. I think you'll see it's a great, great approach. So I'm kind of over directing everything into number one. And again, now that I've got the 6.5-inch scissor, it's just very easy for me to just drop my elbow and let the shear or the scissor reach over. Now going in a little bit deeper, and again with the longer blade, so easy to do. So for those of you out there, I know barbers, you know, traditionally love a longer blade for scissor over comb, but it can be used for anything. So now we've got in two of our categories, the HB Pro 1 and the HB AG, we've got from 5.5 to 6.5. Coming in the opposite way. The hair feels beautiful. I prepped it by shampooing and conditioning with Oi, which is just, if you haven't experienced that from Dalvinez, what an incredible product range. And also for cutting, prepping using the Day. Here, really traditional square layering, at this point disconnected from the face frame because I wanted to keep that kind of a more one length chunky feel. And then these layers are going to drape over the face frame at this point. Over directing towards number one. I'm probably going to do some layers underneath this one, and then I'll let that hair fall over the face frame and use some slicing and sliding. So this is layered panel number one. You know, speaking of Dalvinez, any of our friends who are in the New York area, 2 weekends in a row, we've got fun stuff going on. Next weekend on September 11th, we've got the Hairbrain Video Awards in New York City. If you're interested in that, the tickets are $95. That's open bar all night, and it's an incredible party. If you've never been, I highly suggest you check it out. But then the following week, we're going to go to Dalvinez headquarters on Sunday, September 18th, and this is a completely complimentary event where...
And much more dignified than the Raging Hair Party.
Yeah. Dalvinez will be providing charcuterie and beer and wine, and we're going to say Arrivederci Summer. It's in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and they've got an incredible outdoor space, an outdoor garden, a brand new academy. So they just wanted to invite, you know, some of Hairbrain's kind of New York friends to come in, or anyone who wants to be in the New York area. That's on the 18th. For both of those things, you just want to go to hairbrain.pro, and you'll see it right there on the front page. When you land there, that you can find tickets for the HVAs or you can register. Now, for the free event, it's a limited registration and it's going fast. So if you are interested, I suggest you go over there right away. So here, I'm coming down, you'll notice I kind of just worked in reverse. I did this top area first up here. Now I'm doing this area here. Again, kind of square layering, bringing the top up and then the back straight back and cutting it square to the floor. This will just kind of lighten up between the outline and the layers, and right below that crown. You know, if the hair was really fine, maybe you could skip this portion and just layer what was in the crown. But, you know, if you want a little bit more movement, a little bit more stylability, I suggest you kind of do these 3 panels, the face frame, the crown, and then let's just call this the nape occipital area. Not over directing as much here, just straight back. And it's a little bit, but it goes a long way. You can see this beautiful color. I think the cut really complements it too, where she's got the depth here. Then we start to get into these warmer tones in these layers. You can see how those are kind of melting in. And then that's carried through between the depth and the warmer tones around the face here. All right, so I want to now, I'll go back to my blade. And again, I want to let some of these layers start to fall over the frame in the front. So it's kind of another reason to keep that initial face frame a little bit heavier is if you know you want to do more kind of visual detailing. I think I'm going to start to add a little product here. This is the volume boosting mousse from Davines, one of my favorites for longer hair, whether I'm going to blow it out or dry it more natural. And in this case, I'll just kind of put it in and start to look at the hair more naturally. And just, you know, again, the fragrance, the aroma of Davines products is, to me, unsurpassed. I mean, they're not only very natural, but incredibly unique. They don't just have that typical, like, oh, it's natural. They all have this beautiful individual fragrances.
And the packaging is cool.
Of course, so important. You know, we're excited. We're going to Parma, Italy, which are the headquarters of Davines, international headquarters. And we're going to be working with the artistic director, Tom Connell, to create a very special course for our online academy. So that's going to be happening in October, so we're very excited. So probably before the end of the year, it'll be edited and available for people to see. And it's a special kind of look into the very creative mind of Tom Connell. If you don't know Tom, you should go give him a follow. He's been the artistic director for hair for Davines now for probably since before COVID. So I guess we're going into like 3 years or so. And he's doing an amazing job there of kind of setting a visual tone for the brand. And, you know, I'll be honest, he's also just a really nice guy, which makes a big difference, you know. Very nice to communicate with, to work with. I know that you guys would all enjoy his presence and his teaching style and just the person that he is. So letting that hair, some of the layers are falling over the frame. You know, so again, another good reason to not take too much weight out of that frame when you're kind of getting the bones of the haircut in. Now I can work a lot more visually. And again, you'll notice, even though, you know, there's been a lot of pointing and razor cutting, it's all really just focused on the last 2 or 3 inches of the hair up to this point. So the hair is keeping its density, it's just very loose on the ends.
You put this haircut in pretty quickly. This might be a good option for a client that's running late and...
Totally. Yeah, I mean, you know, sometimes people ask me how long does it take to do the haircut. Say, you know, as long as it takes. Some things go in. This was from the beginning a very simple, kind of quick approach. I could do this same haircut in a very long, complicated approach. You know, you need a lot of options. You need to, you know, what's your mood, what's your client's mood.
Yes, because if a client comes in late, you don't want to have to forfeit the money, and I mean,
I agree completely. You know, I agree. You don't want to give them a bad haircut and rush, but there are ways to do good haircuts quickly. You know, it's just a different, you know, it's not a geometric haircutting for me always takes time. As well it should, because it's a different form of cutting. But being a bit more visual, even though I think I'm still being quite precise, can go quicker, you know, if you know what to look for. If you don't, then this can be a really big problem, you know, because you're just chasing yourself. You're cutting and then going, oh, that didn't work, let me cut something else. So you can see now, to finish off, I am going in a little bit. Everything up to these last few strokes was on the last 2 or 3 inches of the hair. Now I'm going in maybe 5 or 6 inches, you know, or if the hair was longer, it might be even a little bit different than that. So, you know, we're getting the layered effect. Let's see what happens when we kind of move the parting around, because this was cut, you know, long enough that this should be able to kind of move and flow. So we get that kind of sweep in the bang. Nice amount of layers.
Yeah, she's cute.
Yeah, and I think it really complements the beautiful color from Allison. So again, I'll let her dry naturally now that we've got some foam in there. I'll probably add just a little bit of the blow dry primer at the root. This is the blow dry primer from the More Inside line. I love this, obviously, when I'm really gonna blow the hair out, but I love it just to give a little bit more root volume too, without being too starchy or too crispy. And again, amazing aroma. So simple, kind of long layer, borderline shag, but with a little bit of length and movement around the face. I'll let that dry off, and then I'll take some finished photos and put them here in the feed.
All right.
Thanks for joining us today, guys.